The Xylar world of Talon shone like a sapphire in the darkness of its system. Cities floated above the planet, held aloft by technology that seemed like magic to outsiders. The Xylar were a peaceful race, careful, precise, and proud. But today their pride was shaken. Marauders from a distant warlike species had attacked. Their ships tore through the orbiting defenses, leaving destruction in their wake. Panic rippled through the Xylar council chambers as alarms screamed in every corner. The Xylar leaders had fought many battles before, but never like this. The Marauders were relentless, attacking in ways the Xylar could not predict. Their strategies were advanced, but they were not designed for chaos. Xylar soldiers on the ground shouted into communicators, warning of incoming strikes. Massive shields flared to life around the cities, but the Marauders found ways to pierce them. Buildings shook. Bridges bent. Fires broke out in sectors that had been considered untouchable. In desperation, the Council decided to send a distress signal. It was meant to reach friendly allies across the galaxy, allies who would understand Xylar technology and could help them fight. But a small error in the signal's encoding sent it to the wrong coordinates entirely. The message flashed across the void of space, a silent plea for help. Far from Talon, on a planet called Gravik 7, humans lived where most other species would not survive. The world was harsh, with storms that could tear buildings apart, temperatures that could freeze or burn a person in hours, and predators that could end a life with a single strike. The humans there were known in secret records as DEATHWORLDERS. They were trained to survive anything. Their ships were sturdy, their minds sharp, and their bravery unmatched. When the Xylar signal arrived, it did not register as a mistake. Humans detected it and understood it as a call for help. They did not hesitate. Orders were given, ships were prepared, and the DEATHWORLDER fleet launched into space. Within days, the humans jumped into the Talon system. The Xylar, still struggling to hold their cities against the Marauders, were stunned. From the sky, massive, strange ships appeared. Unlike Xylar ships, which glimmered with precision and elegance, human ships were rugged and irregular. But there was something about them, an aura of power, of unshakable resolve. When the humans landed, Xylar soldiers watched in disbelief. The humans moved with confidence, carrying strange devices and wearing suits that seemed built for war. They did not fear the chaos around them. Instead, they studied it, assessing the battlefield with calm eyes. A human commander, tall and broad, stepped forward. His voice carried clearly across the communication link. "Show me your enemy," he said simply. There was no fear in his words, only certainty. Xylar leaders hesitated. Their usual allies would have begun formal introductions, exchanged protocols, perhaps even performed tests to ensure cooperation. Humans did none of that. They wanted action. The Marauder fleet, returning for another strike, found themselves facing the unexpected. Humans had deployed their ships in formations that seemed reckless at first glance. But each ship covered another. Each maneuver anticipated the enemy's moves. Beams of energy flared from human vessels, striking Marauder ships with deadly precision. Where Xylar weapons had failed, humans succeeded. One Xylar diplomat whispered to another, his voice trembling with awe. They do not fight like anyone we know. They survive, where survival seems impossible." The Marauders, unfamiliar with humans, froze in confusion. Ships that appeared fragile dodged attacks with unnatural speed. Humans disembarked in combat suits, confronting enemy boarding parties with hand-to-hand tactics the Marauders could not predict. On the ground, human squads moved through ruined streets. They were methodical but fearless. They used debris for cover, improvised weapons from the wreckage, and coordinated attacks that seemed almost telepathic. Xylar soldiers watched, learning. For the first time in their lives, they felt hope that the Marauders could be stopped. In one district, a human named Captain Joran led a small team into a ruined tower. Marauder snipers were picking off Xylar civilians, and the humans had a plan. Joran's team climbed the tower walls, using handholds the Xylar had overlooked. They reached the top and disabled the sniper posts with precision strikes, saving hundreds of lives. The Xylar, who had once believed humans were fragile, were forced to reconsider. These creatures were adaptable, fearless, and unpredictable. Every action seemed deliberate yet flexible. The Xylar started to follow their lead, trusting the humans' judgment. Back in space, the human fleet continued to press the advantage. Marauder ships that had torn through Xylar defenses were destroyed or captured, The humans employed tactics the Xyler had never seen, using the planet's storms, gravity anomalies, and even debris fields as weapons. It was as if the humans turned the environment itself against the enemy. Meanwhile, the Xyler Council watched in silent amazement. Their cities were still in danger, but humans were turning the tide faster than they could have imagined. One council member, an elder named Valen, spoke quietly to a colleague. "We sent the wrong species a call for help, but perhaps it is the right one after all." In the chaos, Marauder leaders began to panic. They had faced advanced species before, but never like this. Humans were relentless, and their strategies were alien in every sense. Ships fell in patterns that made no sense until the Xyler realized the humans were exploiting weaknesses the Marauders did not know they had. Captain Joran and his team moved through another sector, rescuing trapped civilians and coordinating counterattacks. The humans were efficient but not cruel. They neutralized enemies, but they did not destroy more than necessary. Every action was precise, with an almost clinical understanding of balance between offense and defense. By the end of the first day, the Marauders had lost a significant portion of their fleet. The Xyler cities, though damaged, still stood. Civilians began to venture out, inspired by the humans' bravery. Rumors spread quickly among the Xyler people. These humans were different from anyone else. They did not fear death. They did not follow rules as the Xyler did, and yet they achieved results beyond imagination. As night fell on Talon, Captain Joran surveyed the horizon. Fires still burned and the sounds of distant combat echoed through the streets. But the situation was under control. Humans had arrived, unexpected and unstoppable. The Xyler leaders gathered in the council chamber, still in awe. One spoke aloud, unable to contain his amazement. "If we had sent our call to anyone else, we would be lost. But these DEATHWORLDERS, they may have just saved us." Outside, Joran's team set up defensive positions for the night. They spoke little, their eyes always scanning the horizon. For them, this was just another challenge. Survival was instinct. Adaptation was skill. Fear was a tool, not a master. Some Xyler quietly observed them from the council windows. They were learning, absorbing everything about these humans. Their ships, their tactics, their courage. It was unlike anything the Xyler had seen. And deep down they realized something extraordinary. This was not just help. This was a force that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. The night passed quietly with humans standing guard. Xyler engineers began repairing the damaged city defenses under human guidance. Soldiers trained alongside them, slowly picking up new strategies. By dawn, the Xyler felt stronger, braver, and more determined than ever before. Then from the outer rim of the system, more Marauder ships appeared. They were larger, more organized, and they believed they could finish the battle quickly. They did not expect the humans. Captain Joran looked toward the incoming fleet, calm as ever. "Let them come," he said. "We'll show them why you never underestimate DEATHWORLDERS." The Xyler could only watch, a mix of fear and awe. The humans who had arrived by mistake had already become legends in a single day. And the Marauders, who thought Talon would fall easily, were about to learn a lesson they would never forget. As the two fleets prepared to clash above the Xyler cities, one thing was certain. The galaxy had just witnessed the arrival of a species unlike any other. They were unpredictable, unstoppable, and entirely human. The morning sun rose over Talon, its light reflecting off the scarred cities and the smoking ruins of the previous day's battle. The Xyler were awake early, repairing what they could and preparing for what they feared was coming. Humans, calm as ever, moved among them, checking weapons, reinforcing defenses, and teaching Xyler soldiers tactics they had never seen before. Captain Joran stood on a high balcony overlooking the main city. His eyes scanned the horizon where the enemy fleet was forming in the distance. The Marauders were confident, perhaps too confident. They had numbers, weapons, and aggression. But they had never faced DEATHWORLDERS before. Joran smiled faintly. This would be interesting. Below, Xyler engineers worked alongside humans, learning quickly. One Xyler soldier, Vera, adjusted a shield generator with the help of a human technician. "I never thought of linking the generators like this," she said, astonished. "It doubles the output," the human replied simply. "Always look for a way to use what you have. Adaptation is survival." It was a lesson the Xyler were fast learning. Humans did not follow rules. They did not fight how anyone expected, and they did not give up. By mid-morning, the Marauder fleet was close enough that their ships cast dark shadows over the city. They had learned nothing from the previous day's losses and believed that sheer firepower would overwhelm the defenders. They were wrong. Joran gave his team orders, concise and precise. Form 2 lines. Use the debris field as cover. Let them come to us. They won't expect it. The humans moved with deadly coordination. Ships slipped between floating wreckage, weaving in and out with incredible speed. Marauder weapons fired wildly, but most shots missed as humans used the environment to their advantage. Xylar ships, inspired by human tactics, joined in, adding firepower in ways they never had before. On the ground, the humans anticipated the enemy's landing zones. Small squads moved ahead of the Xylar to secure key positions. Marauder soldiers emerged, expecting easy kills, only to find themselves trapped in ambushes. Humans used captured enemy equipment in clever ways, turning Marauder weapons against their own forces. In one narrow canyon, a human squad faced a group of Marauders attempting to flank Xylar defenders. The humans had rigged the canyon with improvised traps using falling rocks and energy nets. When the Marauders entered, they were caught completely off guard. The humans moved swiftly, neutralizing the threat with efficiency and minimal risk to the Xylar nearby. Xylar soldiers began to see humans not just as saviors, but as a new standard of what strength could be. Their morale skyrocketed. Children who had huddled in shelters the day before now peered from windows, watching humans stand fearless in the open, unconcerned with danger. The Marauder leaders, growing desperate, coordinated a massive boarding attack on the city's main energy hub. They assumed the humans would panic or at least hesitate. Joran anticipated this. Split the teams, he ordered. One group holds the line. The other intercepts at the hub. Use the storm. Use everything. As if on cue, Talon's natural storm system intensified. Lightning flashed across the sky. Rain pelted the streets and winds lashed against the enemy. Humans did not retreat. Instead, they used the storm to obscure their movements, striking from unexpected angles. Marauder forces were caught off guard, their formation collapsing under the combined assault of humans and Xylar defenders. Inside the city, humans had already reached the energy hub. Marauder boarding teams stormed in, expecting resistance from Xylar guards. They were met instead by humans who fought with precision, agility, and fearlessness. Each movement was calculated, each attack designed to disable rather than destroy unnecessarily. Captain Joran moved among his team, his presence steadying them. He disarmed opponents, redirected them, and coordinated counterattacks with calm authority. Xylar observers realized that the human strength was not just in weapons or armor, but in strategy, adaptability, and fearlessness. Hours passed, but the tide of battle began to turn decisively. Marauder ships in orbit were disabled, ground forces trapped, and morale of the enemy collapsed. The humans fought without pause, showing no fear, no hesitation. To the Xylar, it was as if these beings were impossible to defeat. By late afternoon, the Marauder fleet began retreating. Ships that had once struck fear across the system were fleeing, damaged and broken. Human forces pursued them just enough to ensure they would not return soon. On the ground, the surviving Marauder soldiers surrendered or fled into hiding. The Xylar gathered, exhausted but victorious. Their city was battered, but it stood. Their people were safe, and their hearts were full of awe and gratitude. Elder Valen approached Captain Joran, voice trembling with emotion. You have saved us, not just with strength, but with courage, with intelligence, with something we do not understand. Joran nodded, tired but satisfied. We did what anyone would do. You sent a call for help and we answered. That is all. But Valen saw more. Humans did not just fight, they inspired. They did not just survive, they thrived in danger. They were a new model of what life could be, a reminder that the universe was wider, stranger, and more capable than the Xylar had imagined. Over the following days, humans helped the Xylar repair their city. They taught new strategies, new ways to use technology, and new ways to think about survival and combat. Xylar soldiers practiced drills designed by humans, learning lessons that would prepare them for threats they had never imagined. Children watched with fascination as humans demonstrated techniques, handled dangerous equipment, and moved with confidence through hazardous zones. Some of them began to dream differently, imagining themselves one day as capable and fearless as the humans who had saved them. The Marauders, scattered and defeated, would not threaten Talon again for many years. Stories of humans, the DEATHWORLDERS, spread quickly. Xylar historians recorded every detail, fascinated by these beings who did not follow rules yet always succeeded. Before leaving, Captain Jaren gathered the Xylar leaders one final time. "You are capable," he said simply. "Do not forget that. The galaxy is full of threats, and survival comes to those who adapt, who face fear and do not yield. Remember this always." The Xylar bowed in respect. For them, these words were not just advice, they were a revelation. They had seen the power of a species that thrived in places others could not. They had seen ingenuity, courage, and resilience in action. They had witnessed the very essence of humanity. As humans prepared to depart, Xylar children waved from rooftops. Soldiers saluted. Elder Valen placed a hand over his chest, whispering thanks. Humans did not linger. Their ships took to the skies with silent engines, leaving the Xylar to recover, rebuild, and remember. In the void of space, the DEATHWORLDERS looked back at Talon only once, a silent acknowledgement of a job well done. They did not seek reward, glory, or recognition. They simply understood that survival was their nature, and helping others was part of that nature. Somewhere in the galaxy, other civilizations began to notice strange reports. A species that thrived in the deadliest worlds, that fought with intelligence and bravery unlike any other. A species whose presence turned impossible battles into victories. Stories spread, legends formed, and a new name began to echo in the void: DEATHWORLDERS. And so, the Xylar had learned a new truth. The universe was not only vast and dangerous, it was full of surprises. And sometimes those surprises arrived when you least expected them, in the form of beings who did not follow rules, but instead made the rules themselves. Captain Joran's final message to the Xylar was simple. Trust yourselves. Trust your people, and if trouble comes again, meet it head-on. That is how we survive. The humans jumped into faster-than-light travel, disappearing into the stars. The Xylar watched silently, hearts filled with gratitude and newfound courage. Talon was safe, and the galaxy had glimpsed a power it could not ignore. And in the silence of space, the legend of the DEATHWORLDERS grew. A species that thrived where others fell, a species that answered calls for help, even when they were not meant for them, a species that changed the course of a civilization in a single day. The Xylar would never forget.